Recording in progress.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay in a couple of minutes. There were some technical issues, so we have just sorted that out. Well, good to see you all and coming part of and keen to complete the chapter on supply. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So we will straight away go to the place from where we left because we have to complete the chapter of supply today. Okay. What we had learned and understood till now, you are very through. Where we left, we'll do a recapitulation at the end, not now if required, because now we have to complete a lot of circulars and because what is stated in the law. So you have to understand the basics that law is there, which is the act, and the rules are there. Okay. The act says that act will define what is what, like supply, levy, GST is payable, that is defined under the law, that is the GST Act. Then to implement that, the rules come in, right? So once the rules come in, it gives a detailed explanation for the what is there in the sections, provided the section says something like that. If the section uses the word as prescribed, then it will be prescribed in the rules, okay? Or as may be required, as suggested, some words like this, if it is used, then the rules come in. And two, again, rules also will be supported by notifications and by circulars. So that is the structure how the GST law is working in India now. Law, which is the GST, CGST Act, SGST Act, IGST Act, UTGST Act. Okay, so this is the act. Then you have the rules. Again, you have CGST rules, SGST rules, IGST rules, and UTGST rules. The rules and then notifications are specifically issued. And if there is any clarification on any point, right, then what happens? The Central Board of Indirect Tax and Customs is empowered to issue some circulars to clarify any kind of doubt. So if you have any doubt, wherein not only you, right, if it's a doubt which is common for your industry, then it can be represented to the CBIC and they will clarify it. So such circulars will be helpful to decide whether some things are supply or no. Like last class, we had seen some circulars which was on donation. One was on the art painting and also on the no claims bonus. So this is what we had seen last class. Now we were clear with what is a principal and agent. Just 1 minute. So we were clear with the relationship, what is there between a principal and agent. Yeah, doubts will take up at the end of the session because in between it reduces the flow. Fine. We'll do that as well. What we generally tend to do is because the topic is so very vast, we give the 10 minutes 2 times, one in between and one at the end. Okay, Manvi, is the voice clear now? Okay, so we'll discuss on the principal agent is when we concluded that if an invoice is issued by the agent in the name of the principal, then he is not in the capacity of an agent as per para 1. So any kind of supply, there will not be any supply between the principal to him. Only those supplies where the agent supplies to the customer in his own name, that is covered under Schedule 1. So if it gets covered under Schedule 1, what did we understand? What is Schedule 1? What is Schedule 1? Schedule 1 is correct. It is supply without consideration. So any supply without consideration will get covered under Schedule 1 or any kind of activity without consideration is Schedule 1. So any kind of supply between a principal and agent, which agent? A agent who issues the invoice in his own name. Such agent, in such a scenario, the supply between principal and such agent will be covered under Schedule 1. So any transactions between them will be, even if without consideration, it will be a supply. Okay, now let's move on to some special kind of agent. Somebody was asking also, sir, please explain about del credere agent. So what's a del credere agent? It's a special agent, like how you have a normal agent, he connects the supplier and the receiver. But what does a del credere agent do? He is a special agent because he ensures the supplier, saying that, boss, unlike other agents who just connects you to the customer, I will connect you to the customer, but I will also ensure that the payment is made to you. Okay, wherein the del credere agent will pay the principal if the buyer defaults. So he gives that additional guarantee, saying that if I supply to somebody through this agent, I'm sure that my money will be recovered and there is no doubt. So that is a special facility which a del credere agent does, and for that he charges extra commission. Uh, a person who's selling goods, if he is assured that yes, his payment is received, then he is ready to pay that extra commission. So he is ready to pay that extra commission to a del credere agent. Okay. So what are the, we'll understand the table, then for the benefit of people in Hindi, I will repeat it. Now, there's again a circular. Circular says whether this will be covered under Schedule 1 or no, and what kind of supply will happen in case of interest. Now, generally what happens is, you have to, before you go to this table, you have to understand one thing. When I supply something, okay, when I am supplying something, and if the customer defaults in it, if the customer defaults, I will charge interest, right? Now, when I'm charging this interest, my invoice is already issued. At the time of issuance of invoice, I did not know that the customer will default. Now, if the customer defaults, then I will charge him interest. Now, invoice is already raised. So how do I charge him interest? There is an instrument called in GST called as debit note. So I will issue a debit note. Why is debit note issued? It is generally issued if you have issued a wrong value, but you have to issue for a higher value. Say you had to issue for a 110 rupees invoice, but you have issued invoice actually for 100 rupees. Now you cannot bring back the invoice. So to that extent, to the extent of 10 rupees, you will raise a debit note. So similarly, interest is being charged. For the interest, you will raise a debit note. Okay. So such debit note, the nature of that debit note is it will be treated as a supply which is ancillary to the main supply. Okay, so it will get added to the main supply. Now, if you are selling a goods worth 1000 rupees, which is chargeable at 18%, then the interest which you are charging, that will also be chargeable at 18%, because it becomes the nature of a composite supply. And we understood that in case of a composite supply, what is a principal supply? That rate will apply in the ancillary products also, or any ancillary charges also. Okay. So from that context, you understand this. What is an invoice? Invoice means the sales invoice, what you raise. That is an invoice. Okay. Composite supply will read, but understand for now, Hardik, that composite supply, how it will get taxed. When I make a composite supply, the GST rate will be on that item, which is the primary product. So when I am selling a main supplying goods, and if I'm doing delivery charges, right? So whatever is the rate for the goods, that will apply for the delivery charge also. That is the principle of composite supply. So similarly here, when I'm supplying and I'm charging interest, that interest will get added when it is a part of a composite supply. Now from that context, if you read this, whether del credere agent will fall under para 3 of Schedule 1, Now that will be decided by the previous circular which was issued, which was circular 57. That what did that previous circular say? Where the invoice is issued by the agent in his own name, then it will apply. If he's issuing in the name of principal, then it will not be covered under schedule 1. That is fine. Then the second question is, when short-term loan and interest which is charged by the del credar, okay, is to be included in the value of supply when a del credar agent is not an agent as per para 3, which means now if any short-term loan and interest is charged, like since the del credar agent says that I will promise that payment will happen to you, he will give some loan to the receiver. Now whether that will get covered under the principal supply or no is the question. For that you have to see three things. First is whether where is the supply happening from. Supply is goods is happening by the principal to the recipient. Now agency service is charged. Now del credar agent will charge the agency services, and he is providing loan to the buyer because he will have to tell the buyer that you pay. Buyer, if he says no, I don't have money, then the del credar agent, since he is committed to the seller, he will give loan to the buyer and he will charge interest. So this is in a separate supply. Now two supplies are getting bundled. A supplier, say, let's take a supplier. Who's a supplier? Supplier is a big company. Okay. A supplier is a big company, say Hindustan Lever. Now Hindustan Lever supplies it to a store. Okay. Say a supermarket. Now, when this Hindustan Lever sold to this supermarket through a del credar agent, now this supermarket says, I cannot pay you for the purchases what I've made on time. So, but the del credar agent came in between and saying that, no, I had brought them the customer. So you pay him, I will give you the loan. Now there is a separate transaction between this del credar agent and the customer, which is the supermarket. Now del credar agent will give some loan to the recipient, which is a supermarket, and the supermarket will pay to the Hindustan Unilever. Okay. So in that case, there are two supplies. So this loan amount, what is being given, it is given by the del credar agent because he is not a supplier. This is very important. Where he is not an agent under para 3, then this interest is a separate supply. This will not be included in the principal supply. Okay. So interest, when it is being charged by the agent, it will not be included in the principal supply. But when del credar agent is an agent under para 3 and makes payment on behalf of the buyer and charges interest to the buyer, will supply value be increased? Yes. In that case, it will be increased because there is supply of goods by the principal to the del credar agent, supply of goods by the del credar agent again to the buyer, and then agency service is definitely charged by the agent to the seller, and loan service is provided by the del credar agent to the buyer again, but in his capacity as a agent under para 3. The differentiation is whether he is an agent under para 3 or not an agent. In the second point, he was not an agent under para 3, so it was not to be included. But in third case, he is an agent as per para 3, so interest has to be included. Yes, this is a little complicated, very much. You have to understand whether del credar agent is a agent under para 3, yes or no. ठीक है, तो we'll understand this quickly. क्या करेंगे हम इसको समझेंगे. del credar agent कौन है? वो agent ऐसा है जो आपको कस्टमर भी दिलाएगा और बोलेगा कि कस्टमर का पेमेंट का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी भी मेरा है. ठीक है, जब वो बोल देता है तब सप्लायर उसको एक्स्ट्रा कमीशन देगा. ठीक है, नाउ एक्स्ट्रा कमीशन तो दिया, लेकिन जब पेमेंट के टाइम आता है तब कस्टमर बोलता है कि मेरे पास पैसा नहीं है. तब del credar एजेंट जो लोन फैसिलिटी देता है कस्टमर को और इंटरेस्ट चार्ज करता है, क्या उस इंटरेस्ट को सप्लाई में इंक्लूड करना चाहिए या नहीं, ये क्वेश्चन है. वेदर शॉर्ट टर्म लोन एंड इंटरेस्ट चार्ज शुड बी इंक्लूडेड और नो. तब आंसर है नहीं. क्यों? क्योंकि देयर इज 3 ट्रांजैक्शन, सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स बाय द प्रिंसिपल टू द रिसिपिएंट, फिर एजेंसी सर्विस चार्ज करेगा एजेंट, और फिर ये लोन सर्विस जो है वो del credar एजेंट अपने पर्सनल कैपेसिटी में दे रहा है, नॉट एज अ प्रिंसिपल, क्योंकि वो पैरा 3 में एजेंट नहीं है। ठीक है, तो वो लोन सर्विस दे रहा है कस्टमर को। और थर्ड केस में अगर वो पैरा 3 में, जैसे हमने डिटरमाइन किया, जब वो इनवॉइस अपने नाम से देता है, तब जो लोन फैसिलिटी प्रोवाइड की जाती है तब उसे इंक्लूड किया जाएगा। ठीक है, दैट टाइम इट विल बी included in the value of the principal supply. We'll get this clarified because once we go into composite supply, you'll have that clarity, but this you keep it in mind. Correct. Okay, now part number 4 is in schedule 1 says import of services. What does schedule 1 say? When you have import of services without consideration by a person from a related person or from his establishment outside India in the course of furtherance of business. We said that import should be without in the course of business or without in the course of the business. Under 7(1)(a) that it should be for a consideration. Now, again, we are seeing a different scenario when the import of services is without consideration, but from whom? Not in all cases. When there is a transaction between a related person or a establishment outside India. In that case, that import of service will be liable to GST because it is there in Schedule 1. But this transaction has to be between related persons or from an establishment located outside India. So what does in a nutshell, what does import of services say? If there is an import of service, there is a consideration, and in the course of furtherance of business, definitely taxable. Second is if there is import of services, consideration is present, but not in the course of furtherance of business, right? Still, it is taxable, correct? Because 7(1)(b) says that import of services with not in the course of furtherance of business, still taxable. Then third part is import of services where consideration is not present. Will it be taxable? Not in the course of, but it is in the course of furtherance of business, but consideration is not present, which means I'm importing from services from my associated enterprise outside India, but I'm not paying any consideration. Will I pay GST on that? Yes, still you will pay it because if it is from a related or is establishment located outside India, if the transaction of import of services you have taken from foreign country and you are using it here, you are not paid any consideration because you both are related parties, right? Then even if you don't pay, it will still be liable because any case of import of services from a related person who is outside India is covered under Schedule 1. Then last possibility is import of services where consideration is also not present and not in the course of furtherance of business. That will definitely be not taxable because there is no deeming provision for that. The deeming provision of this, which is coming in Schedule 1, is only this part. Only this part is coming under Schedule 1. Clear? So import of services, one is you can import from outside India for non-business purposes, but consideration is to be there. But if you do it for business purposes, their consideration is not necessary in case of establishment outside India. So I'll give you an example to understand this. Somebody was asking on Infosys case. So if Infosys India, okay, is having a branch outside India. Now, if that branch acquires services from Microsoft centrally in USA and says that India, you can also use this. So they are providing some supply from the US entity. Now, from the US entity, when they're supplying, it is in the course of furtherance of business. So I will consider it, but there is no consideration which I will pay now because it is a my branch itself. I don't have to pay any consideration to it. So once the branch payment is not made, still it will be liable because Infosys USA and Infosys India are related person. Since if it's a transaction between related person, even if there is no consideration, still it will be treated as liable to GST because of table point number 4 of schedule 1. But if it is from an unrelated person, free of cost, then no supply. Clear? Yes, in the last class, we said Infosys CS will not apply because there's a circular subsequently. But let's restrict to the law, wherein in the law, it is taxable. Okay, a lot of questions on Del Credar agent. Del Credar issues debit note to principal after issuing. No, 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 no. In case of Del Credar, what will happen is Del Credar will only supply and the principal will raise a debit note to the customer because agent will only involve for his agency charges, nothing else. Okay, so only the principal will charge GST by way of a debit note. And if it is not in the course of other business, if it is personal use, then also if there is a consideration, then it is taxable. If there is no consideration, then not taxable. Okay, importation of service we understood. अभी आगे बढ़ते हैं. Supplies without consideration, schedule 1 is where even if no consideration would be considered a supply. So there is again a circular which is being asked. So sir, when we do sales promotion schemes, whether GST has to be paid or no, because when you make any kind of a sale promotion, you're making a free supply. And on such transaction, will you be liable to pay GST or no? Because when you're making a sales promotion, you are gifting something, right? In such case, will GST be applicable? Is the question. So the circular says that in case and whether in free samples, they do not qualify as supply, right? Because when you're making any kind of a free samples, it is not a supply because there is no consideration. So it will not consider as a supply, but however, the input tax credit, what is claimed, needs to be reversed. Okay, so there are two types of sale promotions which can happen. One is when you are giving free samples, then outward supply, it is not taxable because there is no consideration, but input will have to be reversed. And there could be other type of sales promotion, which is buy one, get one. So you have an option that you buy one, you will get one free. So in that also you can say that, sir, the first one is supply, second one is free. But no, when you are giving a 1+1 scheme that buy one, get one, it means that you are decided in mind that for first product, 50% only is the price I will get. And for the second product, I'm getting 50%. I'm not actually giving free because 50% I'm collecting from the first sale and second from the second sale. So if that I do, then it will be treated as a composite supply or mixed supply, saying that two supplies I'm making together and two supplies I'm making together and the consideration is flowing from to me from as the price of one. So I'm getting consideration. There is nothing free supply. There's no supply without consideration. So it will be treated as a normal supply and I don't have to reverse credit. Neither do I do anything in that. Okay, so that is the different types of sales promotion schemes which are there. Now, all of this is given in circular number 92. Yeah, here if you have any questions, please raise your hands and we can discuss, because there's so many questions which have come up. Yes, Pranav, what is your question? Shahid, what is your question?
हेलो
हाँ, tell me.
सर, मुझे दो डाउट्स हैं। एक तो इसको डेलकेडा एजेंट को लेके, और दूसरा जो अभी आपने बोला
हम्म,
फ्री सैंपल्स का, उसे
हम्म,
लेके। सर, पहले डेलकेडा में
हम्म,
डेलकेडा एजेंट प्रिंसिपल को कस्टमर्स ला के दिया, यानी बायर्स ला के देता है, और इंश्योर ये भी करता है कि अगर बायर्स ने पैसे नहीं दिया तो वो फुल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेगा।
correct.
ठीक है सर, इस केस में डेलकेडा एजेंट एक फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन लाइक बैंक हो सकता है?
हो सकता है, बट जनरली बैंक्स ये सर्विस नहीं प्रोवाइड करते हैं। बैंक्स को उसके बैंकिंग सर्विस करते हैं, बट कुछ छोटी मोटी बैंक्स अगर करती है तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। देन बैंक विल बी एक्टिंग एज अ डेल क्रेडर एजेंट।
ओके सर। सर, और एक फ्री सैंपल में, सर
हम्म,
जैसा कोई अगर हम कोई प्रोडक्ट खरीदते हैं, लाइक मैगी अगर खरीदते हैं, तो उसके साथ एक फ्री सैंपल के तौर पे या तो एक बोल वगैरह मिलता है, तो क्या
हम्म,
वो भी फ्री सैंपल में नॉट टैक्सेबल होगा सर?
करेक्ट, नॉट
मीन्स
टैक्सेबल
नॉट
होगा।
जीएसटी?
जीएसटी लगेगा, बिकॉज इट विल बी ट्रीटेड लाइक अ कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई। जो दो
ठीक है सर।
सप्लाई को इकट्ठा करके बेचते हैं उसे कहते हैं कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई। यस, साई चरण।
Sir, in case of Del Creditor agent, uh,
हम्म,
will that agent be taxed for that amount of supply is making in the form of financial services to that buyers? Sir?
yeah, so that will be the loan service for which he is getting interest, and interest is exempted under GST, then he will not be taxable for that.
Sir, but it was not at it was correlated to the sale rights. Sir. It's
Correct. Correlated to sale, but it is an independent supply what he is providing.
okay, sir. That means it was considered as a similar to bank loans to a
Correct.
person.
Yes.
My another doubt was regarding we will be in case of not in sample goods, we have been talking about reversal of input tax credit if any availed, right, sir? In
Correct.
that input tax ledger, how could we can if various amount of transactions will be vast amount of transactions happens, right, sir? How could we identify that specific sample will we have claimed this amount of input tax? Is that
Yeah.
practically possible?
That is practically happening also now, because every credit what you're claiming is getting matched invoice level wise. So there is something called as GSTR 2B, wherein all the vendors invoices appears there, and you will have to check whether your purchases is matching with that. Only then you can claim it. So either you could do manually or you can use the help of some softwares. But that is how the matching is now happening. Dilip,
Hello, sir. What is the reversal of input tax credit, sir? Can you please explain that?
reversal of input means I have a credit. Credit means what? Whatever purchases I made. Now I've purchased from 10 customers. Each person has charged 100 rupees. So I will get a credit of 1000 rupees, 100 into 10. But when I say reversal has to be done, I cannot claim full 1000 rupees. From 1000, I have to reverse or reduce some credit to the extent what I reduce. That is called as reversal of credit.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Bhavna Garg,
गुड आफ्टरनून सर।
good afternoon.
सर मुझे ये डेल क्रेडर एजेंट समझ नहीं आया।
ठीक है, डेल क्रेडर एजेंट सिंपल है कि जो एजेंट है, एजेंट के जो है नॉर्मल एजेंट आपको कस्टमर लाके देता है, लेकिन डेल क्रेडर एजेंट आपको पेमेंट की भी गारंटी देता है। ठीक है, जब वो पेमेंट की गारंटी देता है तब वो लोन देगा अपने कस्टमर को। जब वो कस्टमर को लोन देगा तो इंटरेस्ट चार्ज कर रहा है, क्या वो टैक्सेबल रहेगा नहीं, वो क्वेश्चन है। तो बेसिक डेल क्रेडर एजेंट आप समझ गए हो, सीइंग दैट हु इज अ डेल क्रेडर एजेंट। जो डेल क्रेडर एजेंट वो है जो स्पेशल सर्विस देता है, कस्टमर से पेमेंट लाने की गारंटी सप्लायर को देता है। वंस ही गिव्स दैट गारंटी, तब वो एक्स्ट्रा कमीशन चार्ज करता है। तो फिर ये शॉर्ट टर्म लोन जो प्रोवाइड कर रहा है, क्या वो मेन सप्लाई में इंक्लूडेड होगा या नहीं, वो क्वेश्चन है। वेदर the short-term loan is to be included in the value of supply when Del creditor agent is not an agent. Now, agent दो तरह के हो सकते हैं. One is when they are issuing invoice in the name of principal, and second is when they are issuing invoice खुद के नाम पे. जब वो प्रिंसिपल के नाम से ही सप्लाई करते हैं, ठीक है, तब क्या होता है, उसे कमीशन मिलेगा, लेकिन वो सप्लायर अपने इतने कनेक्टेड नहीं है कि उसे पैरा 3 में इंक्लूड किया जाए। तो फिर क्या होगा, उसका जो इंटरेस्ट दिया गया है वो प्रिंसिपल सप्लाई में ऐड नहीं होगा। लेकिन अगर प्रिंसिपल और एजेंट का रिलेशनशिप पैरा 3 के तहत है, ठीक है, जब वो इनवॉइस सप्लायर का ही पहुंचेगा कस्टमर को, एजेंट का नहीं पहुंचेगा, तब क्या हो रहा है, प्रिंसिपल डायरेक्टली सप्लाई कर रहा है, तब वो इंटरेस्ट जो है इंक्लूडेड हो जाएगा। दैट विल बी ट्रीटेड एज कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई। और किसके क्वेश्चन है? हु हैव कंप्लीटेड देयर क्वेश्चंस काइंडली रेज योर हैंड, bring back your hands down. Jinky, you can ask your question.
सर अगर मतलब एक एक प्रिंसिपल है और वो ब्रोकरेज लेगा किसी एजेंट से, वो 2% ब्रोकरेज लेता है, तो वो किस में मतलब आएगा? जैसे कि फॉर एग्जांपल 3 पर्सन है, एक प्रिंसिपल और एक एजेंट, और जिसको हम कस्टमर सेल्स कर रहे हैं, तो लेकिन प्रिंसिपल से वो प्रोडक्ट लेके अपने नाम का, एजेंट जो है अपने नाम का कस्टमर को भेजता है, तो वो 2% ब्रोकरेज लेता है प्रिंसिपल से, तो किस में मतलब ये किस में आएगा?
वो इसमें आएगा पैरा, अगर जब कस्टमर एजेंट अपने नाम पे बेचता है, देन इसके अंदर आएगा वेयर डेल क्रेडिटर एजेंट इज एन एजेंट। जब वो खुद इनवॉइस आपके नाम से बेच रहा है, अपने नाम से बेच रहा है, तब डेल क्रेडिटर इज एन एजेंट अंडर पैरा 3 उस कैटेगरी में आएगा।
ओके ठीक है सर, थैंक यू सर।
सर कैन आई आस्क?
यस प्लीज।
सर मेरे को दो क्लैरिफिकेशन चाहिए सर। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, अगर डेल क्रेडिटर एजेंट अगर डेल क्रेडिटर एजेंट का इंटरेस्ट अगर हम नहीं इंक्लूड करेंगे तो वो टैक्सेबल नहीं होगा? वो
नहीं,
लेकिन
टैक्सेबल होगा। अगर आप इंक्लूड करेंगे तो कस्टमर से कलेक्ट कर सकते हो, अगर आपने इंक्लूड नहीं किया तो देन इट इज स्टिल टैक्सेबल, टैक्सेबिलिटी विल नॉट चेंज, बट आप कस्टमर से कलेक्ट नहीं कर पाओगे, आपके पॉकेट से आप पे करोगे।
नहीं सर, मेरा ये पॉइंट था कि जैसे डेल क्रेडिटर एजेंट तो एक लोन सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर रहा है ना, कि उसका
हम्म
पेमेंट हो जाए, तो
हम्म
सर अगर वो सप्लाई में इंक्लूड नहीं होगा तो वो टैक्सेबल भी तो नहीं होना चाहिए ना, क्योंकि वो एक लोन की तरह।
करेक्ट करेक्ट करेक्ट, बिकॉज इट्स अ थिंग कि इट इज नॉट अ सप्लाई के पर से, इट्स अ फाइनेंशियल ट्रांजैक्शन।
ये सर, तो वो नहीं
करेक्ट
होगा ना include, अगर वो
करेक्ट, नहीं,
सप्लाई में नहीं आएगा। और सर
करेक्ट।
दूसरी चीज मेरे को फ्री सैंपल में पूछनी थी। अगर
हम्म
सर फ्री सैंपल्स है, बाई चांस हम कोई भी चीज ले रहे हैं, तो फिर सर जो टैक्स होगा, जैसे आपने कहा था कि कंपोजिट सप्लाई में प्रिंसिपल अमाउंट पे टैक्स लगता है,
हम्म,
तो सर जो टैक्स लगेगा तो फिर वो प्रिंसिपल अमाउंट पे लगेगा और उसमें वो फ्री सैंपल इंक्लूडेड होगा।
करेक्ट।
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू सर।
अविनाश, आपका क्वेश्चन।
सर इम्पोर्टेशन ऑफ सर्विस में जो टैक्सेबल है उसे सप्लायर टैक्स पे करेगा या रिसिपिएंट पे करेगा?
सो इंपोर्ट ऑफ सर्विसेज को इंपोर्टर पे करेगा, क्योंकि सप्लायर तो आउटसाइड इंडिया है, तो इसीलिए जो रिसीवर है वो पे करेगा अंडर रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म। Related party definitions, we have taken it in the previous class, Omkar. You can refer it. The definition under GST is little different. Okay. So questions same repeated are there. There's nothing new questions which have been asked. Yeah. What if we offer 20% off? Yeah. When you give sell something at say discount of 20%, then you're supplying at a value which is after discount. So that will be the transaction value. Whatever, in case of free supplies, even if he's a manufacturer or he's a trader, okay, if free samples definitely be in the course of furtherance of business, it cannot be that you are not into business and just giving free samples. So you are giving free samples when you are into business and you want to expand it, correct? Generally in pharmaceutical companies, a new pharma company comes, they want to sell their drugs, they want to sell their medicines, so they will give free samples of their medicines and products so that people can use it. And so in case such free samples are issued, then input tax credit has to be reversed. The loan by the DC is given to the buyer or principal. It is given to the buyer, not to the principal, because principal has sold his goods. He will not take loan further. The loan will be taken by the buyer itself. Okay. So that was on this kind of supplies. Now 7.1AA says what? 7.1A. Now 7.1AA. 7.1AA says in simple words, the activities or transactions by a person other than an individual, members or constituents or vice versa, for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration. Who is a person other than individual? It can be anybody. It can be a HUF. It can be AOP. It's generally a club or association is what they're trying to cover here. Any kind of such transactions to its members for cash, deferred payment or any valuable consideration will get covered here. So if you see the wordings here, the actual wordings of 7.1AA, this is what has been reproduced. It says the activities or transactions. It doesn't say supply. 7.1A says supply, but 7.1AA doesn't use the word supply, which means what? Any kind of a activity. It can be supply, it can be beyond supply also. Any kind of transaction between a association to its members will be liable to GST. For the purpose of this clause, further the section says that there is a clarification which says that notwithstanding anything contained in the another law for the time being force or any judgment, decree or order, which means that since this judgment under the service tax law, correct? Because of that, we may challenge the levy under GST, but this explanation nullifies that, saying that notwithstanding whatever is contained in the law or notwithstanding anything contained in the, under any judgment, still by relying on that judgment, you cannot say that there is a one person concept between an association and a member, so no GST payable, you can't say that. So this explanation kindly removes it off, saying that whatever notion you have on GST, that has to be reversed. The scope of supply is expanded as now services rendered by a club, association, or any such body to which member will constitute a supply and are liable to GST. That is 7.1AA. Now next is 7.1A, which says classification. What it says, when you have GST as one rate, then why classification is required, sir? somebody had asked this question. The answer is GST is one tax, but the rate is decided for the goods and services separately. So that's the reason you need a classification of what is goods and services. That's why we have Schedule 2, right? Like rate for job work or a product, if service, the rate is 18%, but the rate of steel. So who is a job worker? We'll see in that last class, right? So job worker is doing some job workers on a steel product. Now that steel product is being charged at 12% when it is sold. But when it is given to a job worker to finish his job and charge me, then he will take it and provide it as a service. Another example is restaurant used to get charged as VAT and service tax under earlier regime. Like software, also we had that confusion. That's why we have a classification schedule. Now this classification schedule 2, you can just go through it. Schedule 2 is basically saying that if there is any transfer of title in goods, then it is goods. If it is provision of service, then it's a service. Okay, so that is the illustrative list of schedule 2. Now based on that schedule 2, should we go to that schedule 2 and understand it? Let's go to schedule 2. So this is schedule 2. Basically, I've reproduced the schedule 2 from the act so that we can understand it. First is transfer. When there is any transfer in title of goods, matlab, the title means the ownership, possession and control. These are the three things: ownership, possession and control. If these three things are being transferred, then it is supply of goods. Definitely when there is a title in goods being transferred, it's supply of goods. When right to use is, now goods is with title. Now if there is a transfer of title, it's goods. Now for the usage of that goods, for transfer of right in those goods is being transferred, which means the goods title is completely not been transferred. The rights in those goods have been transferred. What right I have? I have a right to lease it out. So I'm giving this asset on lease and getting some rent. The ownership of that product is with me, but the usage is with them. Why? Because I've transferred the right of usage to that person. Now, when I transfer right of usage to that person, then it is provision of service. Okay, transfer of title is goods, transfer of right in goods is supply of service in GST. Then any transfer of title in goods under an agreement, again, hire purchase or something, is still supply of goods. Any leasing, tenancy, this we had discussed, right? So any kind of lease, tenancy, easement or license is supply of services. Any renting, we will reward it together. Any kind of renting, letting out of building, including commercial building. So any kind of commercial building we give is liable as supply of service. Any kind of treatment that job worker charges is supply of service. Any kind of transfer of business asset, okay, that is a supply of goods. Then where under the direction of one person or a person who's carrying on a business takes some goods from the office to home, goods held in are used for the purpose of business or put to use to private use. Goods which are meant for business use are being used for private use, then that is supply of service. Be very careful, because generally we are seeing goods, when it is getting transferred, it will be taxable as goods, but no, in this case, when any business goods are being used for private purposes, then it is supply of service. Then where any person ceases to be a taxable person, when he is closing down the business, whatever goods is left with him, that is supply of goods. Then supply of services, again, renting of immovable property, complex commercial construction services, development services, software services, agreeing to an obligation to refrain from an act or tolerate an act or to do an act. Okay, agreeing to the obligation to do some act. This, you're not selling something, you're not doing anything, you're obligating to refrain from something. This we will understand in detail. There's a circular for this on all the 3 points of this part E. Then transfer and right to use any goods is supply of services. Then composite supply, works contract. There was doubt, so now they're classifying works contract is supply of service. Then supply of restaurant services, supply of any part or service anywhere thereof, being food or any other article, that is supply of service. So when a restaurant provides any eating facilities, that restaurant services is supply of service. So we are clear with this? Yes, Sai Kiran.
Sir, if your property is taken for let out and initially it was told for taking residential purpose, then GST is not applicable. But subsequently, if they are using it for commercial purpose, whether supplier is liable for charge or recipient is liable to pay GST, sir.
Supplier is only liable to charge GST because what is the usage based on that supplier, if he's registered, he will pay GST.
If it is residential, then no GST.
Correct. Residential, on renting of residential property, there is no GST. On renting of commercial property, there is GST.
Okay, sir.
So that was schedule 2. Now I said that there is one point on which we will discuss on the clarifications. One is the tenancy rights. Okay. Again, when you say any ownership rights of an immovable property, it is not that you're just owner of the land. Apart from owner of the land, you have other rights also. What are these rights? Right of possession means being holding that right. Now, when I give some property on lease, I am the owner. So what I'm giving you off, I'm only giving him the possession. So out of my whole big rights, I'm only giving the right of possession to the lessee. Otherwise, the ownership is with me. So owner of a land has various rights. One is right of possession. Second is he has a right to control it. Then he has the right of exclusion, means he can sell it off. He has a right to exclude it. He has a right to derive income from that property, or he has a right of disposing it off to sell it off. So these are various rights which a owner or a person who's having a land has it. Now, the activity or transfer of tenancy rights. One of the rights is also tenancy rights, that he can give the property for rent to his tenants. Now, the activity of transfer of tenancy rights, again, consideration is supply of service. Correct? It is supply of service. But grant of tenancy rights in residential building. I was just asking that whether on residence GST is chargeable. On any residential property, GST is not chargeable. Grant of tenancy right in residential dwelling is exempt, but surrendering that tenancy right for a consideration is liable to GST. How do we understand this? Now, you have a space. Now you're giving that space to one person. He's the tenant. Now this tenant will give it to another tenant because he has an agreement with the main owner. Now to get back the tenancy, right? So we have to pay a big lump sum, which is called as pagadi, which is also called as pagadi or called as payment for tenancy rights. Now, any kind of payment to surrender the tenancy rights, you have to pay some consideration. That consideration is liable to GST. But grant of residential right, initially, for the getting that tenancy right, I had paid something. That is not liable to GST because that is for residential dwelling. But to surrender it, whatever payment I make, that is liable to GST. Jesse, it is famously called as pagadi in Maharashtra, wherein there is a lot of demand for houses. So a house is given against some premium amount. I will give it to the tenant. Now tenant has been there for 10 years. Now I'm saying surrender the tenancy right, and I will want to occupy my thing, my own land. But he will say, no, I've been an owner for 10 years. So you have to pay me some consideration for me to vacate. So to vacate your own building by the tenant, you have to pay some amount to the tenant. Now this payment to the tenant, what you make, okay, is liable to GST, because this is not towards a residential renting. This is to get back your rights. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
sir,
Yes.
sir, in this part, usually the residential dwelling which are rented are given by an unregistered person, and usually the person who is residing in it is also an unregistered person. Then, sir, who will pay GST on pagadi?
So if the supplier, that is the land owner, is unregistered, now he is giving it to the receiver, the
Yes,
tenant, then both are registered. Of course, firstly, there's no GST because it's a residential dwelling.
yes, sir.
Now, when it is being surrendered, when the landlord pays money to the tenant and gets it, now
Yes.
if that amount is more than 20 lakhs, then
Okay.
he will be liable to register. If it is less than 20 lakhs, of course, it will be exempted.
Achha, less than 20 lakhs.
Already registered. If he's already registered, then he will have to pay.
Then any amount, then he has to pay.
Correct. Correct.
For first amount, if it is less than 20 lakh, or accumulating, if he is in this business only, if it
Yes.
is accumulating, then till 20 lakh he is exempt, and
Correct.
after that he has to pay GST.
Correct. So
Sir,
20
one
lakh it is for services and 40 lakhs is for goods. So then, since this is a service,
to
any
20
other
lakh.
service he's providing, all put together 20 lakhs.
Okay, sir. Sir, one small doubt. Sir, in discount one, we have to first take the value minus discount is equal to liable to GST.
Correct.
Okay.
That is
Thank you,
taxable.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So tenancy rights. Next is on another clarification in Schedule 1, which is a very detailed explanation, which is on agreeing to the obligation to refrain from act, or to tolerate an act or a situation, or to do an act. So three things are covered under this one line. They're saying any activity of agreeing to the obligation to refrain from the act. Second is to tolerate an act or to do an act. Any of these things, if it is there, then it is covered under Schedule 2 as services. So what does this mean? First is agreeing to the obligation to refrain from an act, which means I am agreeing that I will refrain from doing some act, which means I will not do an act. Non-compete agreement. Okay, an employee is there. Now when he leaves, okay, we tell him that you sign a non-compete agreement saying that you will not run a competitive business like what you have been doing so many years. Saying, okay, I will do it. No, don't do it. So pay me consideration, pay me some money, then I will sign this agreement. So you'll pay some consideration so that he will not enter into a competing business. That is the example of a obligation to refrain from art. Matlab, he is agreeing not to do something. That is called refraining. So that kind of refraining is supply of service, and it is liable to GST firstly. Second is, say you are a builder, you are building something. Now this builder, when he's building 10 floors, the other builders come and say that you have permission to build 3 more floors, but don't build more than 10 floors. Why? Why should I not build? If you build, our ventilation will stop. So you build only till 10 floors. But he actually has legal permission for 13 floors. But still, because of the pressure from the neighbors, he will not build anything. Then on that, will he pay GST? No. But if there is any consideration which is getting to not build these extra 3 floors, on that GST will be applicable, because what we said, there has to be a supply, there, and it should be in the course of furthering the business, and there should be a consideration. Are you receiving consideration? No, then no GST. Are you receiving consideration? Yes, then GST is there. So the first activity is activity to the obligation to refrain from an act. Second is agreeing to the obligation to tolerate an act. You're tolerating some act for which you're getting consideration. Now, what could be this tolerating an act? Example would be the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper is having a shop. Now, just at the entrance of his shop, he's getting all his customers. Now there is a thela wala, a hawker who's coming and keeping a stall there. Now, how people, same product of mine, if he's selling, people will go there and they will not come here. So I will chase him off. But every time he's coming, people are buying there. But seeing that, then people are still coming inside. So what am I doing? I am allowing him to be there. I'm saying, okay, you be here, but you pay me some monthly rental. So this is not your place. You cannot collect rental legally. But what is he doing? He is stopping your way. So you're tolerating him stopping your way, for which you're getting consideration. Still, it is liable to GST because the shopkeeper allows this hawker to operate from the common pavement in front of his shop. This, he is agreeing to the obligation to tolerate an act. Since he's tolerating that person's act and he's getting consideration, that is also liable to GST. Then third aspect, what it's saying is agreeing to the obligation to do an act. So you are agreeing to the obligation to do an act, something which you don't want to do, but you are agreeing by way of an obligation to do it. What could be this example? An industrial unit you have set up. You are setting up an industry. Now this industry agrees to install equipment. Okay, now it has industry means it will generate waste. Now waste will get has to be remitted outside. But in your industrial area, there are two residential buildings next to it. Now, these residential welfare association is coming to you and saying that if you discharge any waste, it will impact our drinking water levels. So don't discharge any of your waste. No, but I have the government. I can discharge this much of waste. I am not contaminating the water. I'm only discharging waste which has zero chemicals in it. No, still if you discharge it, my water levels is getting depleted. So you install something called as a equipment for zero emission, wherein whatever waste you are generating, it will not come to water. It will get evaporated or some treatment will happen through this zero emission so that nothing is emitted. It gets converted into gas. Okay, I will install it. Now, why should I install it? Because it is your problem. You give me the price for that machinery, then I will do it. Okay, I will pay you the price. Now, this residential welfare association who are paying the price for installing this zero emissions, basically capital goods, but I'm getting consideration for installing it. Since I'm getting that amount, that will be treated as a supply. So that is the point on third part. Now, for all of these activities must comply with the following conditions. There has to be a contract. The circular comes into place saying that firstly, you saw these three activities. Now, what is a supply? What is not a supply? The circular says there has to be a contract. Now, this contract should be an express contract or an implied contract, which means you should expressly enter into it, or by doing some act, you are implying that, okay, you are agreeing to it, but can't be an oral agreement. It should be an express or implied agreement. And the consideration must flow in return. Without consideration, no supply. Here also, there has to be a consideration along with the first condition wherein there has to be a contract. Now, in that scenario, now the circular goes further and says whether the following things will be liable to GST or no, let us examine. So they say that what happens in case of a liquidated damages. Okay, what is a liquidated damages? Liquidated damages means a damage in that contract. I'll mention a clause that if I do not fulfill this condition, then I will pay some money. In generally contract, the customer gives the contract, customer pays it. But if there is a defect in the kind of contract, generally these are there in huge contracts. Here there's a road building contract between the contractor and the government. So government will say that if there is any defect in your road construction, then you have to pay me liquidated damages. So this liquidated damages is, what is this? It is a flow of money from the party who causes breach to the contract to the party who suffers loss. Now, such payments do not constitute consideration for a supply and are not taxable. Now, is there any supply I'm doing by paying this damages? No, there is no supply which I'm doing. I'm only paying a penalty for the defect in my work. So there is no kind of a supply. So this consideration, if it is there as liquidated damages, all considerations are not supply is what the government is trying to say. You have to identify whether there is a contract and it is for a consideration. Now there is a contract to lay the road. There is no contract to damage the road. If damage has happened, it is because of my defect in work. So there is no contract for that. So it is not a supply. Then in case of any check dishonor, you have given a check. Now the check is bounced or check has got dishonored and there is a fine which has been levied. No supplier generally wants a check to get dishonored. By whatever reason the check has got dishonored. Now that fine or penalty what the supplier is paying is for dishonor of the check. For it is not for tolerating the act, but a penalty is imposed for not tolerating, right? So it is not a consideration for any service and not taxable. But generally, when you go to bank charges, check bounce charges, that is the banker's transaction, that is liable to GST. But when there are two parties involved and the party charges some check bounce charges, on that GST is not payable. Third scenario is when a penalty is imposed for violation of law. Any penalty imposed for violation of law, again, there is no supply and it is not taxable. Then forfeiture of salary, very important. So you are under employment and you have an employer. Now employer forfeits some salary, or you are saying that, okay, don't pay me this month's salary, I want to leave this month itself. So you're forfeiting your salary, which means who is benefiting? The employer is benefiting. Or you have a term payment of bond on termination, which means you have a bond agreement saying that you will be here for 1 year. Now you left on the 11th month. For that 1 month shortage, you have to pay some money to the employer. Will this be consideration? Again, it says that the penalty for dissuading the non-serious employees, because you had a bond to keep serious employees. Now some penalty you have to levy. That penalty for dissuading the non-serious employees for taking up employment elsewhere. Why did he leave it? Because he's getting a job elsewhere. So he's saying, no, I will leave your job. So what's happening? Your employment, your planning gets disturbed. So this payment, what is being made the employee does not get anything in return. What is he getting? Nothing. He's only able to leave early. There is no kind of benefit what he's getting. So such amounts recovered from the employee by the employer are again not taxable. Earlier, lot of such recoveries used to happen and the department used to collect taxes on that. Then this clarification had to get reached to the CBIC and the CBIC clarified this. Then late payment charges or fees. Again, late payment with interest and late payment fees is a facility provided by the supplier, naturally bundled. So any late payment, it will be taxable, but as we had said, it will be taxable as the principal supply. So late payment charges here is different, and what we spoke here, check bounce dishonor, that is different. Last slide before we take all the questions. Then if there's any fixed capacity charges for power. Now electricity bill, what you pay, it has two components. One is a fixed charge, one is a variable charge. What do you mean by fixed charge? Fixed charge is one where you are paying for the minimum capacity. Now fixed charge you are paying and variable charge you are paying. Now 100 rupees is for 100 units fixed you have to pay, and above 100 you have to pay variable charges. Now if you use only 50 units, still you have to pay for 100 units. Will you be liable to GST on that? Yes. still you are liable to GST because that is the electricity charges. Okay, so is the voice better now? Okay. Got it. Okay, so here we were discussing on okay, everybody's saying yes, perfect. So when there is a fixed charges for electricity, okay, fixed charges for electricity, even though you pay for 50 units, still that 50 units will be calculated as 100 units. Now that 100, whatever you pay, it is for full electricity charges, nothing else you're paying it for. That's the reason it is exempt. Why it is exempt? Because electricity is exempt. That's the reason that electricity charges is also exempt. Okay. Then you have cancellation charges. When you booked a hotel, you had paid some money. For some reason, you had cancelled the booking and the hotel has charged the cancellation charges. Will it be liable to GST? No. Why? Because I've cancelled, so I'm not receiving anything. That was the logic which taxpayer used to give. But the government says that when you cancel something, the arrangement, what is done for you for that room, right? That is blocked for you. Now, if you cancel it, they will have to find a new customer. So that's a burden. So they are providing you the service saying that we are not charging the full amount. We are charging some amount. So that's a service what they're giving for you. So on such cancellation charges, GST will apply. Similarly, there could be cancellation charges in terms of travel, flight tickets, aeroplane charges, or a train ticket is also getting cancelled. Cancellation charges levied on all of that. GST will be applicable. On challan, there is no GST, correct. टेनेंट मतलब जो किराएदार है उसे कहते हैं टेनेंट. In hotels, we buy water bottle, right? So if it's a restaurant service, then technically it is supply of service. If you buy packed products like cold drinks, you buy a water bottle, that should be treated as supply of goods. How surrendering tenancy right is liable to GST? As we had seen, a residential dwelling, rent for that, tenancy for that, that is supplied to that is a exempt service. But when you are surrendering this tenancy rights, I had the tenancy rights, I am surrendering this tenancy rights on, which means that I just had that right, but I was not having that right to stay there. I'm not paying I'm not getting that consideration from the owner. Here, to give away this right, I am getting some consideration. So whatever I am giving off on that, GST will not, it will not be exempted. GST will apply because it is not for residential dwelling. That's why on tenancy right surrender, GST is applicable. We don't pay GST on cancellation agreement. No, we do pay because on cancellation charges, I am saying GST is applicable. So on cancellation charges, GST will apply. So if we consume electricity below the threshold, we will still be liable. Yes, because there is minimum pay that is towards electricity charges, and electricity is exempted. So on electricity, there is no GST. Correct, Niketana. Surrendering tenancy rights means giving away the right back. Correct. Now, owner of a shop is paying some money to his tenant. to vacate the shop, so that consideration will be liable to GST. Yes, that will be liable to GST. That's what when we say surrendering of the tenancy rights. From check dishonor, from point of view of bank, it is liable to GST because the banker has the facility of he clearing the check. So he goes to the other bank, and that bank he has to again follow up and get it. So there he is providing some service. So that's a banking charges. Banking charges के ऊपर he will levy GST. Even on bank charges, check dishonor charges, on that GST will be applicable. Airways cancellation ticket due to heavy rain, is it taxable? No, if there is a heavy rain or flood, then there will not be any cancellation charges, right? Generally, if there is natural calamity and something, and for whatever reason, air company has cancelled it by their own, then there will not be any charges what they levy. But in case they levy, then it will liable to GST, because any kind of cancellation charges is liable to GST. Other examples for cancellation charges, you have booked a tour package. Now the tour package is getting cancelled. That cancellation charges will be liable to GST, right? So whatever bookings you do, it could be a hotel, it could be a package, anything, all of that will be liable to GST. What about non-refundable ticket? Non-refundable ticket also, or no, first is non-refundable ticket. If there is a non-refundable ticket, which means that you will not get any refund for the ticket, which means that a supply is agreed that it is made or it will be made, irrespective of whether you consume or no, the charges is levied, correct? So on that GST will apply. Can't say that no, there is no actual supply. The agreement is that you have entered into the customer saying that you will provide it. Now the customer did not avail it, still it is liable to GST. Okay, no other questions? Sir, some e-com service charges extra for cash on delivery more than the product price. Will that come under GST? Yes, that is like a facilitation charges what they're collecting. Like cash amount they will collect, and facilitation charges. On that facilitation charges, GST will apply. Security deposit taken by the tour and travel agency. So when they take any deposit, if you cancel that booking, they will withhold something and pay the balance amount. That's the reason they collect the security amount. So whatever amount they are withholding, on that GST will apply. Okay. Clear till now? Because now we will get into the concept of composite supply and mixed supply. But before getting into that, have you understood the concept of supply till here? So if landlord receives proceeds from more than 2 tenants and the aggregate consideration comes to 20 lakhs, then he will pay GST. Correct. If he's having no other business and he's having only tenancy business, then 20 lakhs is the limit. Once he touches 20 lakhs, then he will have to register and pay it. Settlement of case in Lok Adalat. For that, there is a arbitrator. Arbitrator charges, we'll see that is covered under Schedule 3. On that, the arbitrator is not liable to GST. Okay, we'll take a break of 10 minutes here. We'll come back at 4 o'clock. In the meantime, if you have any questions, put it. We'll take up the questions, then continue, discuss composite and mixed supply. Then at the end, again, take your questions. Okay, so while we were in the break, we saw a few questions coming in. So if a service provider collects refundable charges, which will be refundable when we discontinue, in case of internet providers, will that fall under GST? Yes. So what they will do is when they provide the invoice initially, they will collect full GST. Once it is cancelled, they will give a document called as credit note, so that the balance amount what they have to refund, they will refund it to you. We are exporting goods from sea route, unable delivered due to war. Okay, you're exporting, it is undelivered due to wrong, it is covered under customs duty. Your question is not clear, Ranjit. Late payment charge or fee liable to GST. Am I correct, sir? Not clear. What is your question?
Sir, I have two questions.
Yes.
Sir, one is this one that is usually the banks take charges of prepayment penalty. So, sir, is this liable to GST?
Yeah. Because they are providing some service of giving you the benefit of making the payment in advance. That is liable to GST.
Okay, sir. And sir, second one is that if we have a late payment or surcharge or a fee, uh, in that area, if there is any kind of a late payment, will this be liable to GST as because it is a part of principal supply?
Correct. Late payment charges will be considered as a principal supply and it will be liable similar to the late payment charges, similar to the main supply.
Similar to main supply, no? Okay,
Correct.
thank you, sir.
सर
Yes, madam.
हेलो हाँ
Yes.
सर वीआई की सिम हमें फ्री में जो 1 GB दे रही है तो उसके अंदर भी वो जीएसटी चार्ज कर रही है या नहीं
नहीं, जो 1 GB वो दे रहे हैं या कुछ भी दे रहे हैं वो उनका कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई में हो जाएगा। जैसे हमने 1+1 का बताया था कि 1+1 में जो फ्री दे रहे हैं वो उसका प्राइसिंग जो फर्स्ट प्रोडक्ट है उसमें ही कवर हो जाता है। उसी तरह जो भी आपको प्राइस चार्ज करके फ्री में इंटरनेट दे रहे हैं दैट इज अ कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई, उसमें ऑलरेडी इंक्लूडेड है।
सर मुझे 7A वाला समझ में नहीं आया सर
7 कैपिटल ए या स्मॉल ए?
स्मॉल
हाँ, 7A में भी फिर क्लॉजेस अलग अलग है ना, 7A1, 7A2, 7A3।
शेड्यूल 2 का 7 स्मॉल AA
शेड्यूल 2 है 7(1) कैपिटल ए।
सर
यस, सो 7(1) ये क्या बोलता है, वेयर सर्टन एक्टिविटीज और ट्रांजैक्शंस कॉन्स्टिट्यूट अ सप्लाई इन सबसेक्शन 1। मतलब जो भी सबसेक्शन 1 में सप्लाई है, ठीक है, उसका ट्रीटमेंट, ठीक है, जो सप्लाई है, अब वो सप्लाई गुड्स है या सर्विस है, वो शेड्यूल 2 में बताया जाएगा, ये बोलता है 7(1)(a।
यस सर और सर जो आपने प्रीवियस क्लास के अंदर आईटीसी का एक क्वेश्चन करवाया था सर
आईटीसी का
इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट्स का
हाँ,
हाँ सर उसके अंदर वो बी ऑप्शन क्यों आया सर ये समझ में नहीं आया क्वेश्चन ही सर समझ में नहीं आया ऐसा
अच्छा, वो जो हमने एमसीक्यू बताया था वो वाला।
यस सर
ओके, वो आज एमसीक्यू लेंगे तब फिर से उसको डिस्कस कर लेंगे।
ओके सर
ओके
थैंक
ओके, तो okay, so let's continue with the topic. So we understood this clarification on tolerating an act or an obligation to do an act. Now let's go proceed them under schedule 3. So basically there are three classifications. three heads where there is no supply under GST. Okay. What is supply is there under 7.1, then 7.1A gives the classification, everything is there. Now, what is non-supplies, which means what is a not a supply under GST? Okay. Schedule 3, 5E, sir, can you explain third point, agreeing to obligation to act? I don't catch it. So we have just discussed that. It's not under Schedule 3, it's under Schedule 2. Schedule 2, we had discussed what is agreeing to the obligation to act, agreeing to do an act. Okay. Just when you have the video recording of this, go back and watch it. We have explained what is agreeing to an act with example. So you're agreeing to do some act, like how we had given that example of setting up a zero emission plant on somebody else's request. That is the example of agreeing to an obligation to do an act. Okay. Now, what is non-supplies? There are three kinds of non-supplies under GST. One is Schedule 3, other can be through notification, and then it could be through any clarification. So under Schedule 3, we have any services by the employee to the employer. Okay? So इसलिए salary is outside the scope of GST. Then any services of a court or tribunal. Okay? If you go to any court, you have to pay court payment charges. You have to pay some appeal charges. The such services are collected by the court or tribunal is covered under Schedule 3 outside GST. Then any functions performed by the MP and MLA. MLA, MP, whatever services they are providing, on that also no GST. Funeral, burial or crematorium. Okay? जो funeral services, crematorium and burial services, on that जो हिंदी में बोलूं तो इसको जब देह संस्कार करते हैं तो अब जो भी चार्जेस कलेक्ट करते हैं उसके ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं लगेगा. सो फ्यूनरल, burial and crematorium is outside GST. Sale of land is outside GST, but you have to read it completely. Sale of land subject to Schedule 2(5)B building. मतलब if there is a building which is being constructed and you're collecting charges for that building, that will be taxable. But sale of land per se is exempted. Sale of land is exempted, but sale of building is taxable. That's why when you construct of a building and then sell it. Now, how do you demarcate it? What is constructed building and not constructed building? There is something called as a completion certificate. Once your building is completed, you get a certificate from your government authority saying this is completed. That's called as completion certificate. Once the completion certificate is received, then it becomes an immobile property. That means the building is completely built and it is a immobile property. Before that completion certificate, whatever transaction happens on that, GST is payable. After completion certificate, it is immobile property. It's a land not liable to GST. Okay. And third item is actionable claims. Actionable claims also are outside the GST, but other than specified actionable claims. So they've said all actionable claims are outside GST, but the following things which I'm specifying, that is covered under GST. Now, what are these specified actionable claims? Specified actionable claims of betting, gambling, lotteries. These were all there before. Betting, gambling, and lottery were always there. Even in your material, you'll see that betting, gambling, lottery only is mentioned, but this is an amendment. So this is very relevant for you. Apart from betting, gambling, and lottery, casinos, horse racing, and online money gaming is also getting covered under GST now. Earlier, there was no clarity. Casinos, horse racing, and online money gaming was not liable to GST, but through an amendment in 2023, this has been brought into GST. So actionable claim, there's an amendment. Actionable claim are excluded in the GST other than specified actionable claims. Under those specified actionable claims, what all are covered? Betting, gambling, and lottery, which were already covered from July 2017. Now, casinos, horse racing, and online money gaming is also included here. Then, that was the first type of non-supplies which are covered under Schedule 3. Second type of non-supplies is all this through a notification. So through notification, what they have said, any panchayat and municipality functions is not liable to GST. It is outside the GST. When you say non-supplies, it is not meaning that it is exempted. It is not fitting in the definition of supplies itself. It is outside the scope of supply. Okay. So you don't have to reverse input tax credit and other things. Okay. So on non-supplies, it is not a supply itself. Panchayat and municipality services is outside, and alcoholic liquor license. Alcoholic liquor, when you sell alcoholic liquor for human consumption, is liable to state VAT, right? Since it is liable to central excise and state VAT, now it is definitely outside GST. But for a shopkeeper to sell something, sell this alcoholic liquor license, he has to sell this alcoholic liquor, he has to get license from the government. Without license, he cannot sell. So to get this license, there is a tendering process, and he will have to pay some money to the government to get the license. Now, this alcoholic liquor license is liable to GST because alcoholic liquor is exempted. Why this license should not be exempted, should not be taxable? So they were taxing it. Then they gave a notification saying that alcoholic liquor license is also outside the scope of GST. Then they gave some clarifications. So non-supplies, we have discussed what can be covered under Schedule 3, what is covered under notification, and then we'll see what is covered through clarifications. What is covered through clarifications? Any interstate movement of conveyance between distinct persons. Your conveyance means any kind of a vehicle. So any kind of a vehicle which you are moving from one place to another, on that there is no GST because buses, lorries move from one place to another and they come back. Unless you are selling them, it is liable to GST. But any kind of movement of these buses for passenger transport, they will leave the transport passengers and come back again. So such movement is definitely not liable to GST. And similarly, interstate movement of rigs, tools, spares, and goods on wheels, any kind of repair materials will also be outside the scope of GST. So these three in nutshell covers what is non-supplies. Okay. Now we understood the concept of supply, all the sections, schedules under section 7. Now we'll move to section 8. Okay. Once we know supply, there could be two supplies which are together. There could be mixture of supplies. There could be bundled supplies. So to classify when one or more supply are involved, whether it will be considered as what type of supply, what will be the GST rate is given under schedule and given under section 8. So section 8 says about composite supply and mixed supply. Okay. What is a composite supply is what we will understand first. Section 2 subsection 30 defines composite supply as composite supply means a supply made by a taxable person composite supply means a supply made by a taxable person to a recipient, and it comprises of two or more taxable supplies of goods or services or both or any combination thereof. Important part, which are naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, and one of which is a principal supply. So this is the complete definition of composite supply, which have broken up into smaller pieces. Composite supply means supply which is made by a taxable person to a recipient. Clear yahan pe tak to, that he is making a taxable supply. It comprises of two or more taxable supplies. So if you are selling a laptop, you're only selling laptop. You're not selling anything else. But along with laptop, if you're selling a software, then there are two supplies in one transaction, laptop and software. So it comprises of two or more taxable supplies. One is goods, laptop is a good, software is a service. Supply of goods or services or both or any combination thereof which are naturally bundled. If I buy a laptop, I will need the operating system basically. Other softwares I will install separately, but to operate a laptop, I will need operating system. So laptop generally comes with the operating system, but you have to decide which operating system you need. Based on that, the pricing changes, but they are naturally bundled, correct? So laptop with the operating system is naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with each other. Matlab, they are supplied both together in the ordinary course of business. When you buy a laptop, the supplier will give an operating system, even though you can buy it outside. But in that ordinary course of the laptop business, it is provided along with the operating system, and one of which was a principal supply. In this example of laptop and software, what is the principal supply? Buying of the laptop. So laptop is the principal supply. So in case of a composite supply, there are two or more supplies, one of which is they are naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is a principal supply, correct? So this we understood. When there is a composite supply, this is a composite supply. I'll give you some examples, but what is the taxability of composite supply? Once I decide that yes, it's a composite supply, then the GST rate will be, what is the GST rate for the principal supply? What is the GST rate for the principal supply? That rate will apply for the whole thing. Now, in my example, if the laptop is taxable at 18% and the software, chota software jo dala hai, that is liable at 12%. So will I charge 18% for the laptop and 12% for the software? No, it is naturally bundled. I will give it one price. I will charge 18% on the whole price because the GST rate on the principal supply, which is the laptop, is 18%. That will apply on the whole product. Okay. What is the basis for determining if services are bundled in the ordinary course of business? So there'll be various business. How do we decide? Because you're saying, sir, it is in the ordinary course of business. How do we understand this? We'll take some examples. What is the perception of the consumer? That is also important, because only trade we cannot say. When we go buy something, we are the customers. Customer is the king. So we will decide how the product is sold, and if we like it, that is how the industry will see it. Now, starting when they sold mobile with charges, correct? So it becomes a norm that you have mobile along with charges is a bundled supply. Except, I think exceptional is somebody was saying about iPhone. For iPhone, they have a special market, but generally all mobiles, you will get mobiles with charger. Another thing is how the majority of service providers in that business provide similar bundle of service, right? Like in air travel, when you travel by air, earlier they used to give food along with the air travel itself. They used to like it. So how the in that business provide bundle services, that is also deciding factor. Then nature of various services. What are the services you provide? When I stay in a hotel, generally breakfast is complimentary. So how the nature of various services is bundled, that is also another factor. Then how it is normally advertised. Generally the advertise that hotel means you will get an American package along with breakfast. So they are giving that package itself in that manner. Then the different elements are not separately available. Like when I buy a water purifier may under that parts also will come initially along with it. So it is naturally bundled that I'm buying a water purifier and buying that purifier which is called as candle in it. I will get candle separately also, but the different elements are not separately available at the time of purchase. Then it is naturally bundled. Also, last point is whether the different elements are an integral to one overall supply. When the operating system is installed in the laptop, it is integral. To start that laptop, I need it. So it's an integral part of that overall supply. So these are the factors to decide whether it's a composite supply or no. Now some again circulars which have come here. Before that, we'll first go to the mixed supply. What is mixed supply? Mixed supply means two or more individual supplies of goods or services. Again, 274, section 2 is for all definitions. Section 2, subsection 74 says that two or more individual supplies, they're not composite supply, they're two separate supplies, are of goods or services or any combination thereof, which is made in conjunction with each other by a taxable person. Two or more individual supply of goods or services, which is or any combination which is made again in conjunction with each other, which means they are supplied together for a single price, where such supply does not constitute a composite supply. So if it is not a composite supply, it will be mixed supply when there are two or more supplies made together. When two or more supplies are supplied in conjunction with each other, okay, and they are supplied for a single price but does not constitute a composite supply, such transactions consist of supplies not naturally bundled in the ordinary course. So we all things we saw in the ordinary course of business, they are naturally bundled, they are composite supply. Things which are not naturally bundled, they are mixed supply. Now what are they taxed at? They are taxed at the highest rate in the various supplies. So there are various supplies, multiple products or multiple services are there. Each of them are coming at a different rate. Now, what is the rate for mixed supply you will apply? If you are supplying, my famous example of a men's gift pack, which is having a razor, a toothbrush, and a comb. Okay, a razor, toothbrush, and a comb is sold separately, correct? But they are giving it as a gift pack. They do not constitute a composite supply. Why they do not constitute a composite supply? Because they are not naturally bundled. They are now artificially bundled to make it as a gift pack. Now, when they are giving this, bundling it artificially, they are not naturally bundled, not ordinarily in the course of business it is sold. Now, as a combo pack, when it is sold, it is a mixed supply because it's not naturally bundled. They're bundling it off and now giving it to you. Now, what is the principal supply in this? There is no principal supply because all of them are equal footing. What is the tax rate you will apply on this? The tax rate will be, they are taxed at the highest rate in the various supplies. Basic toothpaste, 5%. Okay. A comb will be 12% and razor will be 18%. So can you bifurcate because it is bundled? You have separate pricing also available. Will you charge independently? Then that is sold separately. But now what you're doing, you're supplying it in conjunction as a bundle. So it's a combo pack. It's a men's accessory pack. In that case, for that you will charge one price and the GST rate will be the highest rate, 5, 12 and 18. Highest rate is 18%. You will charge 18% on the whole combo itself. Okay, that is the mixed supply. Now we understood what is composite supply, what is mixed supply. Now what does the circular says on the various aspects? First is printing of books. If you have printing of books where only content is supplied by the publisher or the owner of the publishing rights, then supply of printing is the principal supply. When you are giving the content to the printer, you are writing a book and all the requirements of the book you are giving to the publisher. Okay. Now you are the publisher, you are giving to the printing company. Now this printing company is only printing and giving it to you. Then it is supply of service. But if it is printing of envelopes, say printing of envelopes, letters, napkins, etc., using logo or design, you're giving him the logo, but the main thing is there is no content in it, right? When you write a book, content is important, material is secondary. But in case of these envelopes or napkins is given, their content is not very important because you'll have only one logo. Main thing is that the quality of the paper, how with the color of it, so that product becomes important. So when the predominant supply is of goods and printing is only accessory, then in such case it will be a composite supply where the principal supply is supply of goods. Then what is the GST rate for the goods that has to be applied? Third scenario is in case when food are supplied to the patients. So we should now understand that healthcare services, hospital is exempt under GST. Okay. When you go to a doctor, get admitted, it is supply of service. Now that supply of service is not liable to GST, it is exempted. Now food supplied to the inpatient, but when the patient stays there, some hospital have the facility of preparing food and giving to the patients. Now food, generally restaurant services 5%, but healthcare exempted. So should we charge 5% or exempt is the question. The answer is food is not given to anybody who comes to the hospital. It's given only to the patients. So once it's given to the patients, it is a part of a composite supply of the healthcare services. आप hospital जा रहे हो खाने के लिए नहीं, you're going there for getting some treatment done. So when you're getting this treatment done, that is your primary activity. You are providing healthcare services. Food is ancillary, not taxable. It will be treated as a composite supply. Then bus body building. In case of a bus body building, whether you are providing what is bus body building, when a bus comes in, you provide the chassis, so niche ka part hai, and bus is fitted on it. So when you provide them, okay, when a person is doing the bus body building, if he's using his own material, then it is supply of goods. But if everything is provided by the bus manufacturing company, I am only doing the bus body fitting or bus body building, only assembling it, then it is service. There is no composite supply because it's a different supply. Depends what I get it. If I get the goods, everything from the supplier, then it is supply of service. If I have to use my own goods and only their instructions will come, then it is supply of goods. If it is contract for assembling, then it is supply of services. Then retreading of tires. Retreading of tires means you have old tires. Now you want to use it again. So you'll go to a rethreading person, you'll give him the tires, tell him to rethread it so that it is stronger. Now, when you give the old tire and tell him to rethread it, he will rethread it and give it to you. That is supply of services. But if you go to him saying that give me the old tires, whichever you have, rethread it and give it to me, that is supply of goods. Okay. So what activity in these last two cases, there is no kind of composite supply or things like that. It is depends on the contract. What nature of service you are providing, what you are providing, that will be deciding whether it is supply of goods or services. So that is on composite and mixed supply all at one go. Now, all your questions should also come in one go.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, Rachna.
Sir, as you said in composite supply, we will take the principal rate, which is highest. And what will be the ITC if we are going to claim for the same? For example, we have purchased it at one rate and we are selling it at another rate. For example, in cars, we have parts of ours and we manufacture some and we procure some from outside dealers also. And at last, the car rate is 29%, which is highest.
Right.
So in that case, what will be the ITC which will be claiming?
ITC you will claim at the actual rate because parts person who is selling you the parts, what rate he is charging, that will be your ITC.
But we are selling it at a higher rate, sir.
No problem. If you're selling at higher rate, not necessary that your ITC also should be at the same rate. You can have ITC at 5%, 12%, 18%, various
Then
ITC there.
then isn't it like we are taxing over?
No, you're not taxing because the tax is always on the value, not on the tax rate. So what
Okay,
is
sir.
your end product, on that you will charge GST. What is the end product for your vendor? He will charge GST on that.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt in printing industries part. Sir, if we are providing the book, content of the book, then it is a composite supply. And sir, if we are taking the printing services for envelope and letter, then it is a supply of goods. It is not a composite supply. I am correct, sir?
Both the cases, it is a composite supply. In both the cases, it is composite supply because there is supply of goods and services in both the cases. Because in the case of printing of books, you're giving him content, but he is buying the papers. You are not buying the paper. You're giving him the content. Content मतलब जो लिखना पड़ेगा. What you have to type in the book that you are giving. Okay. So he is using the paper based on the quality of what you decide. He is supplying paper and the printing services. So it's a composite supply. What is the principal supply? The principal supply is printing the book because content is very high content. So he is supplying the printing services. So the principal supply is supply of service.
Okay, sir. And sir, one more doubt. Sir, the last two cases are only supply of goods and supply of services. They are not composite.
They're not composite. It's
Uh,
cases.
And sir, a combo of a laptop and a printer can be said as a mixed supply.
It's a mixed supply. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, I have doubt in this bus body building, sir.
Hmm.
As you said, if both the chassis as well as the body is given by the person to build, it is considered as service. Vice versa, it is goods. But what if I am giving the chassis and I'm asking the person to build with his own body parts?
It means that your chassis is important, which you're giving the chassis, and the bus or the structure of the bus you're telling him to procure from somewhere. Correct? So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
here also practically what happens is you will tell him what kind of body you will need and things like that. So he's buying on your behalf. Okay.
Okay.
So primary activity is supply of service. This he's procuring on your behalf, which is can be considered as something like a pure agent that he's buying on your behalf. So it is still supply of service itself.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir.
हेलो सर.
Yes.
सर, अगर गुड्स एंड सर्विस एक साथ सप्लाई हो रहे हैं तो अगर हम उसे कंपोजिट सप्लाई बोलेंगे या फिर मिक्स सप्लाई बोलेंगे?
कौन सा एग्जांपल में?
सर, अगर गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज दोनों एक साथ सप्लाई हो रहे हैं तो उसे हम कंपोजिट सप्लाई बोलेंगे या फिर मिक्स सप्लाई बोलेंगे?
डिपेंड्स. अगर गुड्स और सर्विस दोनों अलग अलग सप्लाई हो सकते हैं तो फिर मिक्स्ड हो जाएगा. लेकिन अगर दोनों साथ में ही सप्लाई करना है, अलग सप्लाई जनरली नहीं कर सकते हैं, तो फिर कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई होगी.
सर, इन केस अगर एक सप्लायर हमें गुड्स दे रहा है और जो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का जो फीस है वो खुद बियर कर रहा है, तो इसे किस टाइप का सप्लाई बोलेंगे सर?
उसे कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई होगी.
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू.
सर, नोटिफिकेशन के अंदर आपने बताया था कि अल्कोहल लिक्वर के अंदर जो होता है गवर्नमेंट के पास जाता है, तो उसकी वजह से जो गवर्नमेंट है उसके लिए उसे जीएसटी पेमेंट नहीं करना पड़ता था रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए। वैसे ही सेक्शन 8 कंपनी भी रजिस्ट्रेशन के समय नहीं पेमेंट करती है, मतलब जीएसटी।
सेक्शन 8
कंपनी
कंपनी रजिस्टर करने समय, हाँ, जो एमसीए को पेमेंट जाता है रजिस्ट्रेशन के टाइम,
यस सर।
तो एमसीए सर्विसेज जो है इन द नेचर ऑफ अ गवर्नमेंट सर्विसेज, वो किसी अप्रूवल दे रही है, तो जब अप्रूवल दे रही है तब वो सर्विसेज के ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं लगेगी।
यस सर। एंड सर स्लाइड वो वाला निकालना। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड निकालना सर प्लीज।
कौन सा
एंड
वाला?
टायर्स वाला सर, जो आपने बताया था ना
हम्म,
सर, वो वाला वापिस समझा सकते हैं क्या? नहीं।
तो इसमें टायर वाले केस में क्या होगा कि आपको क्या सप्लाई कर रहे हो वो डिसाइड करना पड़ेगा। आपके पास पुराने टायर्स हैं, आप
Yes,
टायर वाले के पास बोल रहे हो उसके अंदर जो धागा होता है, थ्रेडिंग मतलब जो अंदर का जो धागा होता है उसे और थोड़ा मजबूत करो।
yes sir.
तो जब वो उसे मजबूत करेगा उसके मशीन में डाल के उसको एक और धागा लपेट के देगा ताकि टायर स्ट्रांग हो जाए।
तो ये सर्विस है। और
और
सर
हम्म,
फूड सप्लाई टू पेशेंट है सर, तो वो फूड सप्लाई करता है तो उसके अंदर जीएसटी लगेगी, और जो हॉस्पिटल है उसके अंदर एग्जेप्शन है, इसलिए वो जीएसटी पेमेंट नहीं करेगा।
करेक्ट,
राइट?
करेक्ट,
राइट सर। यस।
करेक्ट।
यस सर। क्लियर माय पॉइंट। थैंक यू सर।
The combination of laptop and Windows is a mixed supply. Yes. What about Office? Office also is a mixed supply. So all the printing of books and tire examples, all of this is repeated twice. So you would have got it because everybody has asked it. So I've repeated it twice. Laptop and software. I think operating software only is a composite, but any other software, right? You can get it outside also. So it's a mixed supply. Please explain Schedule 2. Any specific thing in Schedule 2? So Schedule 2, Riddhi, it's basically saying that once you identify that it's a supply, then 7(1)(b) says that come to me, I will tell you the classification for the supply. Is it goods or service? And for that, I will give a illustrative list. Go to that list. That list is called as Schedule 2. So when do you have to go to Schedule 2? Once you satisfied under 7(1) that it is supply, then go to 7(1)(a) to see whether it is supply of goods or services. बस बॉडी बिल्डिंग अभी हिंदी में एक्सप्लेन किया था। जैसे आपको एक बस बनानी है, तो बस में दो पार्ट होते हैं, नीचे के पार्ट को बोलते हैं चैसी और ऊपर जो फिटिंग होता है उसे बोलते हैं बस बॉडी बिल्डिंग। तब बस मैन्युफैक्चर करने वाले बस बॉडी बिल्डर के पास जाते हैं और उन्हें समझाते हैं कि बस ये चासी और ये बस बॉडी मेरे पास है, आप इसको ले लो और इसको असेंबल करके दो। ठीक है, अलग अलग जगह से आता है तो आप असेंबल करके दो। तो आप असेंबलिंग के लिए किसी के पास जाते हो, वो जो बंदा असेंबल करने वाला है उसे कहते हैं बस बॉडी बिल्डर। ठीक है, आपका जिम वाला बॉडी बिल्डर नहीं, ये बस बॉडी बिल्डर है। तो ये बस बॉडी बिल्डर बस को बॉडी बिल्ड करके अंदर का पार्ट सब फिट करके रेडी करके देगा, तो ये क्या हो जाएगा? सर्विस। लेकिन जब आप सिर्फ चैसी किसी से मंगा रहे हो, बस बोल रहे हो उसी को बनाने के लिए तुम ही गुड्स लेके आओ या चैसी भी तुम ही लेके आओ, तब वो सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स हो जाएगा। ठीक है। Okay, so we'll get to the MCQs. Mr. A has imported interior designings from company X USA for a payment of $50,000 for his house construction and employee in Hyderabad. Is this service treated as supply or no? Yeah. So everybody is giving a correct answer that it is correct answer is B, because import of service is treated as supply even if it is not received in the course or furtherance of business. Correct. This question we already know, but somebody had asked a question. Sir, Tambeshwari, आपका question क्या है इसमें? ये लास्ट टाइम का क्वेश्चन था ना?
यस सर, मैं पूछना चाहती थी सर कि अगर हम आईसीआई की बुक्स अगर बंडल में लेते तो वो कंबाइन सप्लाई है, और अगर एक लेते उसके बाद में मैं दो लेती हूँ तो ऐसे करके वो मिक्स सप्लाई होगी क्या सर? अगर जीएसटी जोड़े तो
लेकिन सभी बुक्स ही है ना, तो कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला,
इससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता।
क्योंकि आप एक बुक लेंगे तो भी जीएसटी है, सेम जीएसटी रेट है, दो बुक लेंगे तो भी सेम जीएसटी रेट ही लगेगा।
ओके सर।
मिक्स सप्लाई कब होता है? जब डिफरेंट डिफरेंट जीएसटी रेट वाले गुड्स आप खरीद रहे हो, तब इफेक्ट होगा।
यस सर, थैंक यू सर।
So in this case, the correct answer is D, since ITC was not claimed before July 2017, because GST itself came in July 2017. So answer we know it is D. What is the definition of goods? C, B, B. Okay, all options are come except A. So the correct answer is C. Goods means every kind of movable property other than money and securities. Money is already covered. So again, Indian legal tender not required. Money and securities, but includes currency that is held for its numismatic value. Matlab, any currency which you are holding it, not for its Indian, the value what is there in it, but for its numismatic value, matlab, for its heritage, a 1 rupee coin, which has some unique number in it, and you're holding it. So you're holding it for its numismatic value. When you sell that, you cannot say that my consideration is only 1 rupee. You may sell it for 100 rupees, so that the value of that will be 100 rupees, not 1 rupee. Okay. So currency that is held for its numismatic value is outside the definition of money. It is a normal goods. Answer is B, because it is treated as a deemed supply even though there is no consideration. So because they are related persons and the person is staying outside India, so it will get covered under Schedule 1. Is that sale value of 100 taxable? Which sale value of 100? Is it in the previous case? There's no money, no? So in this case, it is B. Which of the following activities are not treated as supply? A lot of confusion in this. The correct answer is B. Supply of services between principal and agent without consideration. Supply of services, because supply of goods is Schedule 1. Supply of services with consideration is normal itself, 7(1)(a). Supply of services is not there under Schedule 1, so it is not treated as a supply. Correct answer is C, because in the answer itself is so descriptive that you'll be able to get it. Yes, correct answer is C. Seven is also C. No, 7 is B, because there is a separate bills and spare parts and labor is separately charged. So it is B and not C. It is definitely not a mixed supply. It could be composite supply if it be, but in this case, it's not a composite supply because you're able to specifically identify the labor charges and spare parts. So it is respective rates, not a mixed supply. So be careful, not always mixed and composite only. Sometimes specific identified rates also will come in. Eight, many are saying B. Yes, correct. It is treated as supply of services. 9. 9 answer. Again B. Yes, because consideration is charge for conversion of money from one form to another form is a service, therefore it is supply of service. Right. 10th question. Explain 8th question. Okay, 8th question, really quickly we'll go there. 8th question is, Mr. A sends goods to Mr. B, who's a job worker, for packing of boxes. Is it treated as supply of goods or services? He's only doing and he's packaging it in some boxes, corrugated boxes, मतलब जो brown boxes आते हैं जब आप Amazon में order करते हो, that वो packaging करके दे रहा है. तो वो पैकेजिंग का चार्जेस जो ले रहा है वो क्या रहेगा? इट विल बी सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस. एनी जॉब वर्कर चार्जेस इज ऑलवेज सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज इटसेल्फ. क्लियर? डोनेशन मेड फॉर फिलैंथ्रोपिक पर्पस का मतलब है जो आप फिलैंथ्रोपिक वजह से दे रहे हो, मतलब इस वजह से दे रहे हो जिसकी आपको कुछ रिटर्न नहीं चाहिए, कुछ कमर्शियल नहीं चाहिए, उसे कहते हैं फिलैंथ्रोपिक पर्पस. आप वन साइडेड दे रहे हो, दोनों साइड में कुछ रिसीव करने का इंटेंशन नहीं है, उसे कैसे? फिलैंथ्रोपिक. Correct answer is C itself. Last 2 more questions. शॉर्ट नोट्स प्रिपेयर या मॉड्यूल रहेगा तो बेटर रहेगा, बिकॉज आप जो लिखोगे इन टर्म्स ऑफ ये प्रेजेंटेशन इज फाइन, इट विल कम लाइक अ थिंग, बट स्टडी मटेरियल में ही आप मार्किंग करोगे तो बेटर रहेगा. 11 answer is C. ITC is availed on such business assets. And transfer must be permanent. दोनों condition है. The transfer must be permanent and ITC should not be availed. So both A and C. Correct answer is D, not C. Missed rights of the two registrations. Correct. 12th answer is B. Yes, because establishment A and B are treated as distinct persons. Correct. Okay, so with that, we bring an end to the chapter of supply. We have completed the chapter of supply. Now, since we know the supply in depth, so we will go to the next chapter on charge of GST. So our next class is on 8th, which is Tuesday. There we will go through charge under GST. Yes, madam, what is your doubt?
I asked you, sir, question previous class ITC wala, sir.
What question? I didn't get that.
सर निकालिए ना, मेरे पास है नहीं अभी.
नहीं, आपको क्वेश्चन याद रखना पड़ेगा.
Okay, sir.
ठीक है, मैं ये slide भेजूंगा. That time you go through the slide and tell me which slide you have a question. Okay. Tanu Vishwakarma is asking on question number 1. Question number 1 says that if you're importing something from a company X, okay, Mr. A is an individual, he's importing services from company X, which is in USA, and he is for a payment of 50,000 rupees. Okay, X is charging 50,000 rupees to Mr. A for interior decorator. Now, will that be liable to GST? We said import of services, even if it is not for the purpose of business, but there is a consideration involved, then it is liable to GST. So it is liable to GST is what we are trying to say here. Okay, thank you very much. We will see you again on Tuesday. Have a happy Navratri. Tanu Vishwakarma, you please type the question so that we can go through your question then.